Hey everyone. Today I'm really excited about my next guest, and we met in a very unusual way. I was standing in line waiting to go see a movie with a friend, and she was standing in line talking with someone in French. And I said, "Why aren't you in Paris for the Olympics?" Because it was, during the Olympics, and we just started talking, and I found out that she is a very, very accomplished woman. She goes back and forth between Paris and Los Angeles for her jobs. She works part-time in Paris and part-time in Los Angeles. And she's a writer. She works for, I believe, Paris Match in France. And also she's written a book about Jennifer Aniston, which is a loving tribute to her because she was a big Friends fan and she was very respectful in the way that she did it because she waited till she felt that would be the right time to release the book. Also, she's written screenplays. I believe she's produced things, which we'll find out about when we talk. Well, I already know, but you'll find out. But yeah, we even talked about relationships between European men, American women, and vice versa. Like, how do they relate to us? How they find our ways a little bit different. We go over dating. We covered the gamut. We even talked about Emily in Paris because I love that show. So I asked her, do French people find that, really, do French people really like that show, or do they think it's a lot of stereotypes? So we will explore that. I hope you enjoy my talk with Anais Maquine Denecker coming up. Welcome to my podcast where I'll be speaking with guests candidly about interesting topics. So join me on Candid with Kimbra. Today, my guest is Anais Maquine Denecker, and she said that I say her name right. So, right?
In perfect French. Thank you so
et voila.
much.
So I have a funny story how we met because you're my second guest today that is not somebody I knew from before, like a friend. We just met randomly, organically, because we were in line for a movie, and I heard you speaking French with I think with your son, right? It was your
Absolutely.
and I said, "Oh, how come they're not in Paris for the Olympics?" Because it was during the Olympics, right? And
We missed it.
yeah.
But we're going to be here for the LA Olympics, that's for sure.
Oh wow, that's great. When did you come to? Because I know from your bio that you have an apartment there in Paris. You have a place in Paris, and you live here half the time. When
Uh-huh.
did you make that transition where you decided to live
A
both?
little more than a year ago, I've decided to come back to the United States because that's where I studied. I studied in Santa Barbara. So I really love California. And at some point, I wanted to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the opportunity to come back because of my work as a journalist and as a producer.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to give it a try, and I came back with my son, who's studying film. He's doing films. He's in film studies. So that was the right time in our life, and I had a lot of work here as a journalist. So I'm a foreign media representative here in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
French media representative. Yeah.
And I see from your bio that you also work for Paris Match, or you're the what exactly do you do for Paris Match? And look.
As a journalist, as a reporter. So I'm working stories for Paris Match, and I'm covering any kind of news here in the United States and in the West Coast. But I also work for Le Parisien, which is a pretty famous newspaper in Paris.
Sure.
Same thing. I'm just the media representative here for both of those
Yeah,
media.
I follow you on Instagram and I see you're doing all these things. But I think when we met in line for that movie, you were saying that you had just written a book about Jennifer Aniston, right?
Absolutely.
How long
So
did
I
that
guess,
take you? Go ahead.
no, please go ahead.
I was going to say, how long did it take you to finish that book?
I would say I would say 15 years. Do you know why? Because I've met Jennifer Aniston when she released her movie Marley and Me in
Mm-hmm.
Paris.
Mm-hmm.
So we've met because I was working for TF1, which is a pretty famous network in France, a TV station.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this interview with her, and it gave me the will to learn a little more about it and to write about her story. Because at that time, I had a baby and she didn't, and something happened between us. We talked about my baby because, I had a picture on my phone. And Jennifer Aniston is a very nice woman, and she started talking about my baby to be, just to be friendly. And I felt like something was missing in her life. And at that moment, when I was interviewing her, I thought, okay, she's like this huge star from Hollywood. She has everything everyone wants. She was uh, before she was married to Brad Pitt, the sex symbol. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm just the little French girl who interview her, and at some point I have something that maybe she will never experiment, and I could feel that she wanted it.
Aw.
But for 15 years, she never talked about her relationship with motherhood,
Mm-hmm.
and the will, whether or not she wanted children.
Sure.
But I was really interested listening to her talking about the fact that as a woman, you cannot have a career and be a good mom. It's very judgmental for women.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I wanted her to talk about her own experiments
Mm-hmm.
herself
Mm-hmm.
before writing a book about her and about it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't want to be, as a journalist, someone who would, make a coming out as a woman who wouldn't have children. So I was just waiting for her to talk about it. And when she did, I felt comfortable talking about this experiment I had with her and dig a little more into her own story. So there is three way of writing a biography. The first one is to have the agreement of the actress.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I chose to do because that's not what I chose to do because I think that if you do that, it's kind of a marketing work. You know what I mean? The celebrity wants to tell her story, and she will only talk about her side of the story.
Sure.
The second way is to work as a journalist, so just document yourself and put information together, but without meeting the celebrity, which
Mm-hmm.
is not what I wanted to do either.
Mm-hmm.
So I found a way to do it in between.
Mm-hmm.
I met her 2 times in my life for interviews. So I started from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made kind of an investigation all around her. So meeting her friends, meeting her relatives, trying to know a little more about her, but from people who really know her hairdresser,
He's
and
very famous, Chris McMillan, right? Chris McMillan.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
interviewed him. Yeah, I
Yeah.
interviewed him. It was for a TV show, and I asked him some questions about Jennifer that helped me with my book as well. The opportunity to do both an interview of him for the TV and nourishing, feeding my book at the same time. So that's what I did. And that's why it took so long because I wanted to respect the fact that she didn't talk that much about herself. So I wanted to wait for her to be more open about what she wants to share about her private life. And when she started doing it, I felt more comfortable, doing my job. So that's what I did.
Or did you want to reach out to her again, or did you just go on the fact that she started talking about it publicly? So then you felt like, okay, it's okay to release the book now or to finish the book now.
I felt more comfortable doing it, but I informed my publisher
Mm-hmm.
informed the lawyer and her
Mm-hmm.
publicist because
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to be very clear about the fact that we were
Sure,
writing a book, and they said, well, you can do whatever you want. I mean, as a journalist,
that's true. That's
what
true.
can we do? So that's what they say, and And I tried to adapt, her restriction about
Mhm.
what she wants to talk. I just wanted to respect her because, first of all,
Sure.
I was a big fan of her. Beside the fact that I'm a journalist, I was a fan of Friends, the series, and I really love her and I really respect her as a woman, as a businesswoman. So it's really a book of love. At some point, I just love her and I wanted to share her true story, her true story. Yeah.
That's really great. And you have a lot of integrity to do it that way, but I think it benefits you anyway because I know she can be kind of private sometimes too because she had that falling out with her mother because her mom did a book about her, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. She's very private.
Hmm.
But I discovered that she's a very good friend for her friends. She has friends like for 30 years,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
a group of girls,
Hmm.
the Valley girl. She was hanging out at the beginning of her career, and they're still
Right.
her best friends. So I worked with part of those girls who accepted to tell me a little more about her story. But the deal was respecting her, respecting the truth. Um,
Sure.
Also telling the truth about her story with Brad Pitt because the tabloid wrote a lot of wrong things about that part of her life. Uh,
Hmm.
they were pointing her, saying that she was focusing on her career and didn't want to give him children, but that was not the issue because she couldn't have children. She was
It was a
fighting
fertility.
hard.
Was it a fertility thing, right?
Yeah, she had a fertility issue and she was fighting hard. And all those tabloids were keeping saying that she was pregnant or she didn't want to give a baby to her husband, but that was not the truth. So it made me really sad. And since I'm the same age, and it's just a woman that I admire, and I
Yeah, she
wanted
seems.
to do a tribute to her at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, she seems very cool. Like I think I met her once, not met her, but we used to go to the same hair salon. Chris McMillan worked. He was running a salon that my hairdresser worked at, and so we were standing beside each other, getting ready to pay. And I remember thinking, "Oh, it's Jennifer Aniston." I go to the same hair salon as Jennifer Aniston. Yeah.
Oh, that's why you have such beautiful hair.
Oh no, 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 no. But thank you. But I try, because I like to keep my hair. Women, we have this thing with our hair, right?
And when I interviewed Chris Macmillan, I was very surprised to learn that the racial cut was kind of a mistake under substance. You know what I mean? They were she just wanted him to cut his hair, and he was under substance. That's what he said, and that was interesting. So he tried something, and she was like, "What did you do with my hair?" And she
Right.
became
Yeah,
her hair became the most famous haircut in the world.
I
Every
remember.
woman.
I remember when that happened. It was like, but she looked good with every style. She looked good with long because she's very beautiful and she's such in good shape. But she's a California girl like me, so she has that kind of ease about her. Ease.
That's true.
Right. So that's great. So how's the book doing? How long has it been out for?
It was really first it was released in France, but
Mhm.
right now it's going to be released all over Europe, starting with Netherlands.
Oh,
So in France, it was released in June, and it was a pretty good success. So we were really happy about it. And I think, because it's the 30th anniversary of Friends, and after Matthew Perry's death, I think the fan wanted to learn a little more about the actors. So right after this book, I released another one about the all cast
mm,
and to know what happened to them
friends.
since the end of Friends,
Mhm.
and yeah, about their life and their story, their background. So I did another book which is called Friends Forever,
Oh,
that was released in France first as well. My publisher is Hachette Publishing, Hachette if you prefer.
Hachette Publicity. No, publishing.
Publishing. Publishing, yeah.
Publishing. Okay.
And it's an international publisher. They have a office in New York, but it was released in France first.
Okay.
So
So,
right now, I don't know if the book will come to the US, but it's all over Europe. Yeah.
okay. So you don't know if it will ever come to the U.S.
It depends of the publisher. You know, it's a European book, so they will decide whether or not they're going to release it in the US. I don't have the answer yet. The book was released 3 months ago. They translated it for different markets in Europe. So of course it's translated in English, but I don't know yet if it's going to be released in America. For sure, it's going to be released in England. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, next time when I see you when we go to coffee, I will buy a copy from you because I'm sure you
I
haven't.
will give it to you.
No, I want to read it. I want to read it.
Yeah, because you speak French, right?
Well, I would try the French version first so I can laboriously go through it because speaking French is easier for me, but I can read and write it pretty well as well. But sometimes when it's like, there's certain expressions that I'm sure I don't know that, because I learned it from school. So it's very, what's the word? Academic, right? And you probably write in a way, any French person writes a little bit more normally, like how people speak. So there might be some expressions that I don't
More familiar, that's
yeah,
for
more
sure.
familiar. Yeah,
It's true.
colloquial maybe. But anyway, it'd be a good practice for me because I haven't read French in such a long time. When I was a little girl, I always dreamed of going to France and then actually Europe and all of Europe. But when I was 19, I think I went there for the first time, and I had it was such an amazing learning experience. I think I was telling you earlier, right? To learn how Europeans think of Americans, because I lived in my little California bubble, and it was like everybody wants to be American, but it's, and so much culture that I all I did was every weekend go to museums and, and they're so into fashion, as we were talking about that earlier. So, no flip flops and no shorts.
Absolutely. No.
Absolument.
Forbidden.
Yeah. What do they say?
Forbidden.
Interdit, right? Isn't that
interdit?
Interdit.
Interdit.
But I was looking you up on IMDb too, and I know that you've done some screenplays, right? Haven't you written screenplays?
I did. Well, back in France, I worked for TV shows, but series, like short series.
Mm-hmm.
So I also wrote novel. I'm really into fiction, feature film. That's what I would like to do next, because I have two novels that were released in France. One won a prize. It's a thriller that I would like to adapt because it takes place in France, but it also talks about Santa Barbara, where I studied.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to adapt this book in the United States. It's a family thriller, and it takes place in Normandy, where I was, where I have an apartment as well, and the hero, it's called The Key, okay, and the hero is American. He married a French girl and is working on a company that is taking care of all the events that are organized around the D-Day, So a murder occurred. And so it's kind of a bridge between America and France. And that's what I love about my job.
Yeah, I know you get to meet a lot of interesting people too. I think it was on Instagram, you were interviewing somebody. It was a famous person. I can't remember now, but you said, I love my job.
Oh, yeah, that was Angelina Jolie.
Was it? Were you there for her movie, about Maria Callas or something?
Maria Callas, yeah. But I didn't interview her that day. But I was happy to meet her.
Yeah.
But I love my job. I love meeting people, not only famous people. I love the human humans in general, learn about different background and different stories that make us, who we are.
How did you get into writing? Was either one of your parents or anyone in your family writers?
No, not really. That's just something that I really enjoyed. And then I went into mass communication and mass media at Santa Barbara UCSB when I was in my 20s. I spent 3 years in Santa Barbara learning about writing, journalism. And when I came back to France, I spent 27 years on television and on print press. So probably I improved my skill. I've always wanted to write. Then I did some master class with Christopher Vogler. You know Christopher Vogler? He's an American script doctor. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. That must have been interesting, huh? To learn from a
So
script.
he came to France for a master class, and I learned how to write with him, as well as Luc Besson. Maybe you know that's a
Oh, yeah, I've
French.
heard of Luc Besson. Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
He's a French director, and he used to run a school in France, which was called l'École de la Cité. And I took some classes with him as well to improve my writing. And when I felt ready around my 40s, I started writing books. So I started with a novel about television. It was kind of, Devil Wears Prada, but talking about television, because that's probably the universe I know the best. And then I did this book, The Key, who was a pretty good success because it was a thriller and people love thrillers.
Sure.
And then I did the 2 biographies I was talking about earlier. So,
Oh, you've had because I thought you were just an author, because that's when we talked online, you were telling me about your book. So when I looked you up, I was like, wow, you've done so many things, And did you produce also or no?
Yeah, I produced TV show in France. Yeah, a lot of documentaries as well. I have several projects right now with a platform, and I cannot talk about it. So I'm working on 3 documentaries that are going to be released between 2025 and 2026. We are going to go into production in January. So it's always the same. I mean, I have a will to build bridge between French culture and American culture. So that's what I want to do. No matter what topic I'm working on, that's what I'm focusing on. So 3 of those documentary are about French culture in the United States or American culture in France. So that's
So
what
nice to have somebody that really loves American culture.
I do.
It's so hard to find, especially in France, I mean, because sometimes, oh, by the way, you're a good person to ask. I love that show, Emily in Paris, but do French people think it's just too many stereotypes, or what do they think about that show?
What do you think, since you lived in Paris?
I think, to be honest with you, I think some of it is very true. Like the one that plays the boss,
Yeah.
But
it's really French.
Yeah, she's right. See, I know. Yeah, she's very like, oh, Emily, because they're not afraid they don't sugarcoat things usually,
Absolutely.
Right?
We are very direct.
Direct.
When we have something to say, we just say it.
Which is good. But I was telling you earlier, when I first went there, I was very young and I didn't ever live outside of California. I traveled a lot when I was even younger than that, but that was my first time in Europe. And so when I met French people, and you know how they like to sit in the cafe society and talk about politics and everything, right? And so they'd say, oh, you Americans, you have the big cars and the big, and I was like, oh gosh, they'd always call me the little Californian, that's what they called me, right? But it was good. It was good for me because it gave me a perspective outside of my bubble, right? So, but anyway, having said that, watching Emily in Paris, I do think the woman that plays her boss, I can't think of her name right now, is very good actress, and she's
Her name is Philippine Leroy. She's a very good actress. Yeah.
yeah, I like her a lot. I
Yeah.
didn't know about her before the show, and I like it because it gives a lot of it's a little bit over the top. But that's the way it's because with the fashion and it's supposed to be bigger than life a little bit. I think Emily, she's a stereotyped American too, like Chicago from Chicago, who's never been over there, so she's a little what they call green. But I really like the show a lot. At first, I thought it was a lot of stereotypes, but I gave it a chance, and now it's really grown on me. So it's a very popular show.
Yeah, it's very entertaining. And to answer your question, I think it's very stereotyped,
Uh-huh.
but that's pretty interesting because that's part of our culture. The beret, the fashion, and thinking that Paris is the most romantic city in the world. So you show the best of Paris through
Sure.
that show. So it's stereotyped, but part of it is true. And as you say, the way the French, like also the guy who's working in the restaurant, that's the way the French guys
Oh,
are.
yes, I dated a chef. Now that you're making me remember, I dated a chef when I was living there, right? And he would always be like, "Out of my way, out of my way." I'll never forget that,
So
And
you are the little Emily.
I am. I just thought of that. I am the Emily before Emily in Paris. But it's so.
But we do have stereotype about American. That's what you said. Wearing shirts and flip flops,
Right.
and that's not true. That's not who you are. What's interesting is that it was like 2 or 3 years ago, 2021. Fox Entertainment and Hulu, Disney Plus were producing a show here in the United States called Love Trip Paris. Maybe you've heard about it.
Mm-mm.
So it was about 4 girls who were looking for love in
Mm-hmm.
Paris.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I worked on that show. I have been lucky enough to have a chance to work on the executive production of this show in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked for the best place to shoot, and then we were looking for the suitors, because we were looking for French suitors to seduce
Sure.
those 4 American girls, and the production was really into Emily in Paris style, So it was really stereotyped as well. But we really enjoyed sharing those beautiful places in Paris. Well, I mean, I really enjoyed working with folks on that because we went all over the place, from the Tour Eiffel to La Seine to Montmartre and the Montgolfière, and so it was a great experience, and it was pretty interesting because that was probably my first experiment as a TV producer.
Mm-hmm.
In building a bridge between America and France. Suitors were French, the girls who were looking for love were American. It was an American production, and we were an executive in France. So that was very, very interesting to work on it.
I do think that American women can find love in Paris because French men are so, I mean, you may have a different side of that story, but French men are very, I think Europeans in general are very more open to falling in love. That's my experience, because I feel like American men can be a little guarded, and we are like, we're always like, what? It's too soon. What do you? But in Europe, they're just like, they just dive right in. If they like you. Maybe it's different now, but when I was there, I feel like when they like you, they just go with it,
But I think you're right. We just have a different approach of what a love story should be. You know what I mean? I was really surprised when I lived in the United States when I was younger and dating American men. I was very surprised about the fact that you call it dating. So that means when you date someone, the guy can date 4 girls at the same time. And I was like, what? As soon as we kiss, a man or a man kiss a woman in France, then you're together, you're a couple. And maybe
True.
even if you are a couple for 1 week, you are a couple. You are,
That's true.
it's kind of
That's sweet.
an engagement, you know?
That's so sweet, and you're right. I forgot about that. I mean, that's another way of looking at it. I sang in Italy. I did these tours where I would go sing in Rome and southern Italy. An American friend of mine was on these tours already, and she got me on the tours, right? And so we were very, very young again, and we would date, we dated these soccer players, and they were gorgeous, right? And they were just wanted to be our boyfriends like right away, and we were like, wow, like in America, it's not like in America, it's like, you date, like you said, and, well, until you have the talk, right? The talk, which is, I'm not going to see anybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Europe, which is kind of sweet, that's why I think it's easier for women, to meet somebody over there and possibly fall in love. And, you've got like other things about the culture. Maybe it's a little more old fashioned in some ways, but in some ways it's not, because I think European men can appreciate, I don't know, they have a way about them that appreciates the beauty of a woman, but also lets them, be how they want to be, because it's an older culture. And so,
and I think we still have a very romantic way of seeing what a love story could be. So, for example, I mean, in the United States, when a girl meet a boy, she would ask, what kind of car does he drive? How much money he makes? And in France, we don't care. We are looking for true love. Like, even if he's a homeless,
I
we
know.
fall in love with a bad boy, and everything is possible because, we are so romantic, and
Right.
that's love and heart. The heart talks first. So
That's
I don't think it's a good thing.
I don't know. It's sweet in some ways. I guess it just depends where you are in your life too. Like if you're, 19 to 25 or whatever, you're like, yeah, but yeah, let's do it, right? But then when you get older and then maybe you have responsibilities, like you might have been married and divorced and have a kid, and then so you got other things you got to think about, right?
Absolutely.
But it's talking to you, it's making me think like I want to go back to Europe because it's just so much. You will definitely, have most, I mean, I can't guarantee, but I think most women will have some kind of love affair when they go to Europe,
Oh, let me tell you a story that is very funny. When I was a student here in Santa Barbara, I was dating a guy who was working on television. He was a sports journalist or whatever, and he took me to a restaurant. He was my boyfriend. I mean, we were together for like 2 months or something. He took me to a restaurant. And he starts using this coupon not to pay the price.
Oh
No,
no,
that,
how gauche.
my gosh. And he was like, well, in America, if we cannot pay the price
Oh.
that we want, or having the doggy bag, I was like, what are you doing?
Oh, I know. Well,
So
I
romantic.
could see if you were married or something, maybe like you're trying to save money, but not while you're dating because you want to put your best foot forward, right? You're like, in France, we never do this.
So it's like, woo,
Oh,
you pay the bill, and very romantic, and the chair and everything.
I know that's a whole other topic. If I ever do another podcast, on this topic of dating, I'll have to bring you on as a consultant, like the European consultant.
Let's do that.
That'd be
Let's do
fun,
that.
right?
Yeah.
I've done that before with another podcast I used to have, and we had a girl on that was she's kind of an influencer and matchmaker, right? And
Oh.
so she consults women about how what to do on dates and things like that. So that would be fun to have you on there from the European
Oh yeah.
perspective.
Because what's interesting is that we're kind of lost in translation when we talk about love, right?
Right, right. That's true. That's true. But yeah, it's so you were married before? Were you
Yeah.
married to an
I'm
American?
divorced, and I was no. I was married to a French guy,
Oh, okay.
and we divorced when my son was only one. So.
Yeah. He seems like a good kid, your son. you know?
He is. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, he's really talented. He's a photographer. He's working with me as a photographer for the French press, so the French media. So that's cool. And he wants to become a director. So he's starting his own movie right now.
So maybe you'll write a script that he can direct, right?
Oh, I would love it.
Yeah.
I love working with him, but he has to do his own stuff, and he's really creative. So I don't think he will work with mom forever, but but I enjoy working with him.
But when he becomes a big famous filmmaker, you'll be like, "Hey, use your mom," you know. So does he like living in America too?
Yeah, he does. We really love it. We both enjoy. I mean, I just love America. I've always felt like maybe I had a previous life here in America because I feel home here. I don't know why, but it has always been this way.
Are you from Paris? Are you from Paris? Or are you from?
I was born in the north of France,
okay.
And I lived 30 years in Paris. And then I moved to Normandy, where part of my family is. And yes, I lived most of my life in Paris. So.
Yeah, you have what arrondissement did you say you live?
Yes, ninth.
Ninth. Okay.
9e.
Because I lived in the 10e, so that's close then, right?
It's close. Yeah, I live near the Galerie Lafayette.
Yes,
Opera.
that's where I lived. Galerie Lafayette. Is it still a big shopping center?
It is. That's the most important shopping center in Paris. Well, actually, there's another one that just opened in the 15th arrondissement, which is called Grenelle. That's really famous. Okay. But Galerie Lafayette is still
That's the one good thing about Paris. Oh, not the one good thing. One of the good things about Paris is that things don't change so quickly, you know, because in America, you can have something that's really big and famous and then, oh, that's gone, you know. But the Galerie Lafayette, that's been famous forever, you know. So,
yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you came on today. And
it was a pleasure.
Did you want to talk about what are you doing next? I mean, I know you have your book.
I'm producing three documentaries. That's what I said, but I cannot talk about it yet.
Right.
So that's what I'm working on right now.
And
another book.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe when you're done with one of them or something, you can come back on, right?
With pleasure.
Avec plaisir. You know, I got to practice.
Avec grand plaisir.
I got to practice my French somehow.
Merci beaucoup.
Oh, merci de rien et merci à toi. Oui.
Yeah, very good.
So I want to also wish you happy holidays. Are you going to go back to France or?
Not that year. No, I'm staying here because I have a lot of work to do here. I'm covering a lot of things and preparing my documentary so that I will shoot here in Los Angeles for most of them, most of the parts.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
You mean most of the holidays you're going to be here?
Yeah, I'm going to be here. I'm going to go back to France probably in February, not before.
That's a good time.
I just came back from France. I was in France in September.
So. I remember. How long do you go back for when you go back?
A month and a half. I stayed a month and a half. Yeah. Most of the time I'm editing my documentary in Paris. So you know, I'm doing the shooting here, and then I'm editing in Paris.
Okay, so you're a good editor. You're a good editor.
I know. I'm working with an editor. I'm not an editor. Yeah.
Because that's the one thing I don't really enjoy editing film or editing. I don't enjoy it at all. So.
It's a long way, the editing takes so long, and I think it's a work, it's better to have a good editor. Yeah.
It makes things a lot easier. But anyway, Anais, I want to say Anais, I'm so glad you came on, and I will be talking to you soon, and good luck with everything, okay?
Good luck to you too. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye. You too.